Well, daughter, you are now our favorite daughter-in-law. Luna Aria hugged Luna Aria again. Recently, her son Connor Aria had made a marriage proposal, and they had informed their family about the upcoming wedding. Connor already knew the bride's parents. For Aria, this meeting with her mother-in-law was a premiere. Aria's parents, Liam and Lily, had lived in a big city all their lives and were pretty wealthy. They had given their daughter everything she needed: an apartment, a car, a respected education, and a job, and they expected her to choose a husband of her own status. Connor seemed to be a very nice guy. When he was 25, he had a respected profession. He earned his money in a large company and lived in a beautiful area in the city. But as it turned out later, the apartment was rented. However, Aria convinced her parents that her future husband did not have to take up a mortgage immediately because she already had an apartment. "We will live in my apartment, and then we will buy a shared apartment. It is already clear to you that the property acquired together will be shared in half," asked Papa Marish. The fact that Connor's dowry was only the presence of a large family confused him. "We won't get divorced. What are you talking about? Things happen. But not with us. Connor and I love each other. He deserves enough to put money into the family budget. Maybe not bad according to everyone, but clearly less than you. This is not good. It's just that Aria earns a significantly above average income. You've set the bar too high for the groom." Liam, Lily, the future mother-in-law, chimed in. "Let it be. He seems nice, and Aria loves him. Let them live, let them live. But they're planning a wedding," Liam continued. "It's the right thing to do. I'm glad the guy is serious. You know what happens. They live together for 10 years, have kids, but they don't hurry to get married. We know about these serious intentions for an apartment in Moscow." "Dad, what are you talking about?" Aria cried. Her father's words hurt her deeply. She felt that her father doubted that she could be interested in a man and ran out of the room. "What kind of man are you, Liam? Why do you hurt her?" she heard her mother say. She didn't hear what her father answered. But as it turned out, her mother had convinced her father that Aria was allowed to choose her groom herself, and Connor was not a bad choice. Liam gave the green light for the wedding, and the groom invited Aria to get to know his parents. "Why don't we meet in the restaurant? Let your relatives come to the city. With the train, this is no longer a problem. Honey, you know that I have a very big family. Where would they all stay if they came?" "In a hotel?" Aria suggested uncertainly. "They have no money for hotels and restaurants. They are ordinary people. And I can't accommodate them all at my own expense. We have to save for the wedding." "No, let's go to the village. I'll show you where I was born. But we have to take the train so we don't get stuck in traffic." "All right then." Aria was of the opinion that they didn't have to postpone, because her father could give them a very nice wedding, but she didn't object and agreed. It was thrilling for her to enter a stranger's house, but Connor's persuasion had an impact. On the weekend, Liam and Lily accompanied their daughter and future son-in-law to his in-laws. Liam wasn't pleased, but after talking to his wife, he kept his opinions to himself. Lily, on the other hand, didn't like the idea of the trip, but the matchmakers had only invited her daughter-in-law, and it would be impolite to go without an invitation, so only the daughter went with them. Aria, being a well-mannered girl, stocked up on gifts, having previously learned what his relatives liked. She bought a beautiful tablecloth and towel set for the future mother-in-law, and sweets, tea, and coffee for the others. "So are you ready to meet her?" "To be honest, I'm a little scared. I'm telling you, these are simple people. By the way, don't be surprised. This is not Moscow. You can't expect golden toilets." "What do you expect? Wooden toilets on the street?" "No, it's not that bad," laughed Connor. The settlement they arrived in didn't look very modern. Older houses, a broken road, a few abandoned gardens overgrown with grass. Connor's house stood out with a more or less well-kept garden and a painted fence. It was obvious that people lived there all the time. There was a large box next to the gate in which a dog was sleeping. When he heard the guests, he barked loudly, startling Lena. "Phew, stay back," Connor ordered, dragging the dog away from his future wife. Why is he so angry? Because a dog is supposed to guard the house. This is not Moscow, where dogs don't look like dogs. "The children are here, my son, my love." A woman ran around the corner and quickly hugged the newcomers. Aria, unaccustomed to such active expressions of emotion, felt out of place. But the future mother-in-law calmed down only when she kissed her daughter-in-law and son, and only then let them in. But the guests were not received less hot there too. Aria went everywhere. She seemed to have been hugged countless times. She couldn't have remembered so many names, even if she had tried it. There were her aunt, her sisters, her uncle with wife and children, her grandmother, distant relatives, and even the neighbors to get to know the bride. Everyone was pushing around the embarrassed Aria, and the interrogation began. "How did you come here? And why did you stay away from your family for so long? And how will the babies come soon? Where does the bride live? Where does she work, and who are your parents? Where did you get to know each other, and where do you want to live?" And many other questions that Aria seemed inappropriate, and the number of lipstick spots on their cheeks could hardly be counted. "Leave us over, we're tired from the street," said Connor, realizing that Aria was not ready for such attention. He literally pulled the bride out of the circle of relatives. "You have 20 minutes to rest, then we come to the table. We want to know everything, every detail," said the mother of Connor. "Don't be afraid. At the beginning you are just like that. Then they will calm down." "How do you know that? Have you already brought a bride home?" Aria grinned. "No, of course not. I only know my family. Come on, move around and let's go to the table. My mother made dumplings for you. She worked very hard. Please praise your culinary skills." "I'll do it." Aria and Connor sat at the head end of the table. She didn't even remember the food that she was offered because she only looked at her plate because of the excitement. What surprised her was that a little crack ran along the edge. "Wow, eat out of broken dishes," she thought. The dishes were also old, and a hole on the edge was in the tablecloth that hangs down near Aria's leg. "I didn't buy the tablecloth for nothing as a gift. This tablecloth must be 100 years old." She was bombarded with questions about her family, her childhood, her youth, and much more. Only her blood type was not asked, it seemed. But that would have happened too if Connor hadn't said that it was time to give Aria a chance to freshen up. "Eat, dear guests," said the mother-in-law. "I cooked my grandmother's recipe all evening. Do you have any family recipes, Aria?" "No. How come?" "Don't your mother and grandmother have a signature dish?" "I don't remember my grandmother. She passed away when I was 3. My parents have a housekeeper who cooks and cleans." "What a bunch of people. City folks. What do you eat? Do you enjoy cooking?" "To be honest, I don't enjoy cooking. I always ate at caves or my parents," said Aria. Somehow she felt guilty as she looked at her mother-in-law after this confession. "We have a boy who is used to homemade food. So of course you have to cook for yourself," Luna's sister Penelope interfered. "As I said, the family recipe was passed on from generation to generation," continued the mother-in-law. "You also have to be able to cook. Connor loves these dumplings." Aria didn't know what to say. "I think it's time to try what has been said so often." Connor pushed the plate to his bride. "Come on, eat. Otherwise there is talk and everything will be cold." Aria nodded. Under the strict eyes of the relatives at the table, she couldn't take a bite. Nevertheless, she carefully took a spoon and tasted her mother-in-law's specialty. It was very hot, so she didn't immediately notice that the broth was too salty. "How was it?" Aria was stared at by everyone, from small to large. "It was good, very good," she had to lie. She didn't want to be rude. Connor caressed the bride's hand appreciatively, and Aria smiled. She wished that this evening would end earlier so that she could escape the curious looks and intrusive questions. "Can we leave tonight?" she asked Connor when the first opportunity arose. "Do you have something important?" Mum would be offended. "No, I promised we would stay until tomorrow. Then we'll leave tomorrow morning." I have a few more things to take care of for work, she replied. You work too much, Aria. It's the weekend. You need to rest, Connor insisted. Aria had to come up with a new excuse to leave. She pretended to feel weak since the morning and convinced Connor to go home, skipping breakfast, lunch, and dinner together. It's a shame you had to pack your things so early. We didn't even get a chance to talk, said Luna sadly. I would prefer for you to come with me. One day, said Aria Hadel. Of course, we will definitely come. We don't have anyone in Moscow apart from our son, said her mother-in-law. Aria smiled to say goodbye and she and Connor left. How do you like my family? He asked. Wonderful people, replied Aria. She decided not to say that she felt uncomfortable. Thank you for respecting my mother. That means a lot to me. I know, to be honest, those dumplings were terribly salty. So you lied when you said you liked them? I could see from Connor's facial expression that he was disappointed. You told me I should like them, even if I didn't. I said that because I didn't expect you to be so reasonable to criticize something that was specially made for our arrival. Aria found no answer. She was amazed at what her fiancé had said to her. Okay, let's pretend that we had forgotten this unpleasant incident. Connor did the fell. Aria nodded. She didn't want to argue and found that it was really a minor thing that was not worth a scandal. You don't swallow yourself with the food of salted dumplings. But when my family comes, you really have to learn how to cook. Because you won't understand me if we welcome our guests with bought salads. My in-laws like to eat a lot, so we have to adjust to it. Why will you visit us? Asked Aria. You suggested to invite everyone. I didn't invite everyone, just your mother. She will not be able to go alone, because family gatherings are the most important in our family. We are not in a big city where everyone is for themselves. Aria swallowed these words. She hoped that the meeting would not take place so soon, and she had a lot of work and other things to do, so that the week passed as if in a flight. We have to choose a cake. We have a 6-month appointment with a good confectioner, but we are lucky I made an appointment for a tasting tomorrow, remembered Aria Connor when he came home from work. We'll do the cake later, not this weekend. Why not? Because we have guests to visit. But I hadn't planned that. Aria was confused. We discussed everything last week. Tomorrow at noon, we have to meet relatives at the train station. Ask your father to make the company car available. Can't your relatives take a taxi? She didn't want to speak to Dad. Firstly, it is not mine, but ours. And second, of course not. Imagine how much money it would cost to put them all in cars. How many people come? Aria is tense. I'm not sure, but 3 cars should be enough, plus ours. Where should we all accommodate? She gasped. Maybe we could take a hotel? You're not proud. You can sleep on the floor. Aria was not herself. She called her mother and told her everything. I do not know what to do. I have an appointment and a lot to do. And he didn't even tell me how many people will come. Do nothing. Tomorrow morning, Zoe, our housekeeper, will prepare everything and bring it to you, said Lily. If necessary, we can accommodate some of the relatives in our house. Aria breathed a sigh of relief. She was grateful for her mother's help, and at a certain point everything was really finished. The table was set, the most beautiful tablecloth was laid out, and they prepared to receive the guests. Is your mom going away? Connor asked directly when he got home. No, she wanted to meet your mother. I wouldn't introduce her before the wedding, but I guess there's no way out. We also need to discuss dowry, rituals, and traditions. What rituals? The dowry, the wedding. Aria didn't have time to respond. The doorbell rang. It meant that the relatives had arrived successfully. And again, long hugs and greetings began. As her future husband's relatives filled the hallway, Aria realized that half of them were new to her. Come, sir, tell me where to go, asked the mother-in-law. Aria didn't pay attention to Luna's words, but Lily didn't like the fact that her daughter's apartment suddenly belonged to someone who wasn't even registered there. Mom, will we have enough to eat? Aria asked quietly. I don't know it. Did they come as a whole collective farm? Do you know them all? No. Well, we'll think of something. The guests sat down at the table. Although Aria's apartment was large, the family barely fit in the living room, and the children had to sit at a separate table. Well, to the young people, Luna raised her glass. They poured her a collector's wine, but she frowned and took out what she had brought in a plastic bottle from under the table. Here, this is our way, Luna, the guests rejoiced. Only Aria's mother drank wine. The bride herself only drank water. She felt uncomfortable in her own apartment. What delicacies haven't we prepared? What is that? One of the guests took a bruschetta with duck liver. No, we don't eat that. Will there be a hot meal? Aria, take care of the guests, Connor whispered. It's not nice that you're sitting there while Zoe does everything. Mom wouldn't understand. She's worked so hard, and you're sitting there like a guest. Aria had to carry the plates herself. She broke one of them when she was worried. Luna shook her head disapprovingly. We wanted to talk about the wedding, Connor reminded her, diverting her attention from the broken plate. Yes, we have a rule. When there is a wedding, the whole village celebrates. That's why we're celebrating the second day here. In your cafe? Asked Lily. Why in a cafe? We set up the tables outside, and that's a good thing. Do you want to hire a caterer? A caterer? We are simple people. We are not here in the capital. We boil cold water, make dumplings, make sour soup. For the wedding, Kessel. Aria didn't understand. She hated this drink, and she didn't want dumplings or kissel at her wedding. She also didn't like the table setting in the field. Many of her friends had chosen a rustic style for their wedding, but Aria was urban through and through and didn't like hayloft photos and wooden benches instead of beautiful classic chairs. The menu needs to be discussed. Traditionally, the bride must take an active part in preparing the table. That's why you have to arrive the day before and help. There should be enough food to feed all guests. The more people we feed, the richer life will be, said my mother-in-law's sister. We wanted to go traveling after the wedding. Aria turned to the groom. Yes, of course we will. As soon as we celebrated the second day. Centuries-old traditions must be honored. A holiday that lasts only one day is not a public holiday. We only get married once, so let's make it a wedding to remember. May I ask if you expect help from your daughter-in-law in preparing the second wedding anniversary? Will you also get help in organizing the first wedding anniversary? Asked Lily. What would be needed? First of all, to tell me how many guests will be on your site. 150 people. We didn't count. Maybe a little more. Any close relatives? Do you divide your relatives into near and far? We have no such idea. We are not here in the capital with its strange customs. Everyone in our village is our nearest and dearest. So we'll pay for the banquet pro rata. 10 to 90%. We can pay up to 15% depending on how much we have. Of course, we don't pay for the delicacies. That's unnecessary. We bring something of our own. No, you misunderstand me. In relation to the guests. If you bring 90% of the guests, then you also pay 90% of the amount, said the future mother-in-law, looking at the reaction. You have strange arithmetic, sister-in-law. Do you want to profit from us? Lily's expression changed. She could no longer smile politely. What do you mean by profit? Our relatives will give more than yours, 90% to be exact. How on earth did you calculate that? Because you have 10 people coming and we have 90. I mean, that's clear. All our guests are well-off people. And we're not poor either. Or do you, brother-in-law, have a prejudice against us? We are simple people, but we are more honest than you, the rich people of the capital. Aria listened to this strange conversation and wanted to fall on the floor. She was ashamed of her mother for this bizarre conversation that Connor's organized aunts. Meanwhile, he was sitting there and eating his warm meal in silence. Sometimes he nodded to his mother. Sometimes he gave his future wife meaningful glances. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore and spoke loudly in Aria's ear. Calm down, Mother Aria. A wedding is a matter of two parties, so you have to be able to compromise. Sorry, can the cake be served with tea? asked Zoe, saving Aria from fainting. She remembered the cake and changed the topic. Try it. There are different coverings. We actually wanted to go to a wedding cake tasting today, but we had to cancel. The confectioner was very accommodating and brought pieces to the rehearsal. That will be expensive, right? Connor's sister asked. This confectioner has unique cakes. The price is justified, but it will be a gift for my girlfriend, so don't worry. It is better to give your money. What's in giving away cakes? That is our agreement. Your girlfriend is not a girlfriend. She is a fraudster. She wants to save money on you. Such a cake is worth 3,000 rubles. Sonia bakes them in our village. It is cheap and tasty. And the main thing is that the ingredients are clear without this new-fashioned frills. I think so too. The filling squeaks on my teeth like sand. And the chocolate is not chocolate at all. Here in our village, it's not like in Moscow, said the groom's mother. Thank you for the good food. I think you should go now, said Lily, and indicated Zoe that the banquet was over, and that the dishes could be picked up. Is there no tea anymore? Zoe, fill the tea in plastic cups for the guests, and pack the cake in a container. But hurry up, the guests are in a hurry. Their train will soon leave, and they have to take the subway. Luna wanted to object, but Aria didn't listen to Connor's displeasure. She understood that her mother was right. When the guests left, Connor started scolding Aria. Fortunately, her mother was at home and campaigned for her daughter in time. Dear son-in-law, if you love your family so much, you still have time to take the train with her. In our family, we do not have the same moral ideas as in your home village. You cannot dictate your own terms here. You live at the mercy of a bird. This is not a village shop. This is a city. Connor looked at his mother-in-law and closed his mouth. Since then, he hadn't talked about his in-laws, and they had postponed the wedding. Aria thought about it and decided to wait with such a unique obligation. She asked Connor to temporarily return to the rental apartment. She had to see her fiancé, who she liked less every day. Fortunately, Aria soon met Noah, who Liam and Lily immediately liked. He and Aria had very similar views on the wedding and their future together.